Since my son Chase died by suicide, I've done a lot of research into teenage suicide, and it's amazing to me how many teenagers die by suicide every year. The statistics are alarming and shocking to me. I had no idea. I had no idea how many kids attempt suicide, and that's only the ones that are reported. There are many, many more that never even go reported, that people don't even know about. Kids that might attempt in their bedrooms or somewhere else, that take pills and throw up and their parents never even know, that somehow attempt to hang themselves or put a bag over their heads and stop themselves before it's completed and never tell anyone. So the only ones that are reported are the ones where they actually wind up in the hospital. So when you add all those numbers together, it's a staggering amount of kids, teenagers, that this is happening to. And so it's an epidemic that needs to be dealt with. It needs to be talked about. And I think people are scared to talk about it. I think there's stigma associated with it, that it's something to be ashamed of, that the person who died by suicide, that their family should be ashamed that that's the way they died. And I want to be at peace now. But if the message we give is suicide is not okay, and there are other options, and these are the other options you have, and you give kids the message that suicide's not the option, then I don't think that you're going to have that same. I don't think you're going to have that same risk of copycat suicides. I think when you're hush-hush about it and you don't want to talk about it, I think you run the opposite risk. You run the risk of kids that are getting the message that, oh, we don't talk about this. Okay, so now I'm suicidal. We don't talk about this. This is bad. I have no one to talk about. It's shameful. We're going to sweep it under the rug. And so they have no one to deal with it. And so now you run the risk of them actually going through with their suicidal plots. And I don't think that's okay. I know when in reading about suicide, I know that they said that when a popular media personality dies by suicide, the suicide rate goes up just across the board. But when Robin Williams died by suicide, the suicide rate actually went down, and that's because of the way the media addressed that situation. And rather than glamorize it or make it sound like it was something great, they said he had a mental illness. He was seeking help. He didn't get enough help. He needed more help. And there is help out there for people who are depressed. There is help out there for people who have mental health illnesses, and suicide could have been avoided. And so I think if we give the right message, then we can lower that risk. So I certainly don't want there to be copycat suicides, and that's not my intention when I say let's talk about suicide, but I think it's important that kids are able to discuss these things. Let's see what else. 90% of cases of suicide, there are signs, there are red flags, there are things that people are aware of, are noticeable, whether those people have been in counseling for depression or on medication for depression, have said they're suicidal, have said they're depressed, have said things are already receiving some type of mental health service, have been diagnosed with some sort of mental health. 90% of the cases, that's the situation. There's only 10% of the cases where a suicide comes as a shock, where people, there wasn't a case where they were receiving counseling, or there was depression, or there was signs. And so in most of the cases, there are ways that we can get help for these people. And so I think we need to educate people on how to look for the signs and what to do and how to help, and not just ignore those signs. And make sure that kids know if they see in their friends these signs, what to do about those. To tell an adult, to tell a counselor, to help them get the help that they need, rather than just ignore them or not be sworn to secrecy. Don't tell, but I'm feeling like I'm suicidal. We need to tell. We need to get that information out to get them the help they need. In Chase's situation, I think he was one of the 10% that we didn't have any signs, we didn't know. And so, unfortunately, there wasn't anything anyone could have done in that situation. But that's only 10%. So 90% of the cases, there's stuff we can be doing. And how can we be doing that without communicating? And so we're right back to that part that we need to be communicating about this stuff, not just sweeping it under the rug and pretending that it doesn't exist. And that scares me, that we're not talking about it and we're not addressing it. The statistics also show that if a teenager knows a friend that died by suicide, that their risk of dying by suicide is increased a lot. Yet here in Spanish Springs, there's been no crisis team called into the school. There's no one addressing these issues. And it scares me for all those people that knew Chase, and their risk is higher. Their risk is higher of dying by suicide, and no one's addressing that. No one's talking to those kids. No one's thinking about their increased risk and the feelings they're having, and nothing's being done about that. And that risk is higher for at least a year, and it can go on longer than that. The risk is higher for kids who lost a friend to suicide than a family member to suicide for teenagers. And that surprised me, but I think because for teenagers, their friends kind of are their family, and they spend so much time with their friends that their friends are kind of more important than their family in their high school years. And I get that. So when a friend does die by suicide, it's a huge deal, huge, and we're not dealing with it at all. We're just pretending like it doesn't exist. We're pretending like Chase didn't exist, and his life didn't exist, his death didn't exist, and life goes on. I think the school kind of had the attitude like, we'll address this. If we ever have a suicide, then we'll address it. Well, we've had a suicide, and we're still not addressing it. And I know we've had, here at my house, we have kids come, and they're able to talk and be who they want to be, and we carry on Jesus' memory, and they're free to talk, and I think that helps. But that's only a very small group of people. And so it's just a small percentage of kids from the high school, and I can't reach the whole high school. And there's the suicide prevention group here that's willing to come to the school. They're willing to provide education to the counselors. They're willing to do training to the counselors. They're willing to do assemblies. They're willing to do education for the school. They're willing to do all sorts of stuff, yet have not been allowed or welcomed into the school. And I think we're missing the boat with that. Not okay. Chase's suicide has obviously left a huge hole in her family. I don't know how it's been 5 months and I don't know how we're going to recover. I mean, it's still a day-to-day thing. For people to say, you know, behind that shiny smile that there was maybe some sort of hidden depression or some sort of hidden sadness, I don't believe. He was the happiest. Most loving, funniest guy ever. I mean, he always made other people laugh, but I think he was truly a happy person. And so whatever the hell happened that night that he died, I think it was totally situational in those few hours. It wasn't this long-seated hidden sadness. I just don't believe that. There's nothing that has come up that would tell me otherwise. I just don't believe it. And so just really hard to come to terms with that just a couple hours can change so much. I've talked to people that have attempted suicide and were not successful or changed their mind at the last minute, and were able to stop their attempt in time. And most of those people go on to say that they can't believe they did that. Holy crap, I can't believe I did that. What was I thinking? And are very thankful that they were not successful and kind of view it as a second chance in life. And I think with Chase's situation, with the rope around his neck, it cut off his airway, his carotid artery, and he was unconscious within 3 seconds. And so he had no chance to change his mind. I mean, 3 seconds he was unconscious. So I believe that if he would have had just a few more seconds and he could have stood up on his feet, he would have said the same thing. Holy crap, what was I thinking? And
I think that people should know that suicide is not an option, and it should never be an option. There are many other things that you can do to handle your problems, to deal with your situation. There's crisis lines you can call, you can text, there's people you can talk to. If you're depressed, you can see a counselor, you can go on medication. I think, like we wrote in Chase's service program, that committing suicide, it eliminates the chance for the situation to ever get better. You never have a chance for things to improve if you end your life, and there's always a chance that life can get better. And not only that, suicide just transfers the pain to everybody else. So I don't think that suicide should be an option, but I also think that kids shouldn't be afraid to talk about it. And I think that
they shouldn't be scared to tell people that they are suicidal, because I think a lot of teens do get suicidal thoughts, and I think they shouldn't be afraid to talk about that so we can deal with it and make sure that they don't commit suicide.